the truth about why you hate yourself and how to change it. Let's start with a question. When you look in the mirror, what do you see? Not just your reflection, but the person behind it. Do you see someone you respect, someone you love, someone you're proud of? Or do you see someone you criticize, someone who's never enough, someone you wish could be better? If you're like most people, you probably lean toward the second answer. We all have that voice in our heads, the one that says, "You're not good enough, why can't you do better?" Or "What's wrong with you?" It's relentless, isn't it? It's like a constant loop of self-judgment playing in the background of your life. But have you ever stopped to ask why? Where does that voice come from? And more importantly, is it telling the truth? Here's the hard truth: most of us don't just dislike ourselves, we actively hate ourselves. And we might not even realize it. We mask it with humor, with distractions, with the hustle of daily life. But deep down, there's this gnawing sense of dissatisfaction, this feeling that we're fundamentally flawed. And here's the kicker: it's not because we're broken. It's because we've been taught to see ourselves this way. Let me explain. From the moment we're born, we step into a world that's constantly measuring us. Think about it. How often do you hear phrases like, "Be the best version of yourself," or "You can always improve"? On the surface, these sound positive, even empowering. But underneath, there's a dangerous implication that who you are right now isn't enough. This idea gets reinforced everywhere by parents, teachers, friends, social media, advertising. We're bombarded with messages that tell us to compare ourselves to others, to strive for perfection, to fix every flaw. And over time, we internalize these messages. We start to believe that our worth is conditional, that we'll only be lovable or valuable if we meet certain standards. And when we inevitably fall short of those impossible standards, that's when the self-hatred creeps in. But here's the paradox: the harder we try to fix ourselves, the worse we feel. Why? Because self-hatred isn't solved by achievement. No matter how much you accomplish, that voice in your head will always find something else to criticize. It's like pouring water into a bucket with a hole in the bottom. It's never going to fill.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
So, what's the way out? First, you have to understand that self-hatred isn't natural. You weren't born hating yourself. Self-hatred is learned. It's a set of beliefs and patterns that have been programmed into you over time. And if it can be learned, it can be unlearned. But here's the tough question: are you willing to unlearn it? Because unlearning self-hatred isn't easy. It means confronting the stories you've been told about who you are and questioning whether they're true. It means facing the pain you've been avoiding, the shame, the insecurity, the fear that you're not enough. And it means making a radical choice to stop trying to fix yourself and start accepting yourself instead. Self-acceptance isn't about giving up or settling for less. It's about recognizing that you're already enough, even with all your flaws and imperfections. It's about understanding that your worth isn't something you have to earn. It's something you already have simply because you exist. But let's be real, that's easier said than done. How do you go from hating yourself to accepting yourself? In the next part, we're going to dive deeper into the root of self-hatred, explore why we're so driven by comparison and perfectionism, and uncover the first step to breaking free from this toxic cycle. The comparison trap. Why you think you're not enough? Let's get honest. How much of your self-hatred comes from comparing yourself to others? Be real for a second. How often do you scroll through social media, see someone's perfect vacation, their flawless skin, their successful career, their happy relationship, and think, why can't I be like that? How often do you look at someone else's life and feel like yours is falling apart in comparison? The truth is, comparison is one of the biggest reasons we hate ourselves. And here's the crazy part, it's nothing new. Even in ancient times, humans measured themselves against each other. Philosophers like Aristotle and Kant debated the role of comparison in shaping our sense of self. But the difference today, we're comparing ourselves to everyone, all the time. Think about it. Social media has turned life into a non-stop highlight reel. You're seeing the best moments of other people's lives, their achievements, their beauty, their success, but you're comparing it to the worst parts of your own life. You're sitting there in sweatpants, dealing with real problems, while someone else is posting a filtered photo of their perfect vacation. And even though you know it's just a curated image, it still makes you feel like you're not enough. But comparison doesn't just come from social media, it's baked into our culture. From a young age, we're taught to measure ourselves against others. Who got the best grades? Who's the most popular? Who's the most talented? And as we grow up, these comparisons only get more brutal. Who has the best job? Who's earning the most money? Who's the most attractive? Here's the thing, comparison might feel like a natural instinct, but it's actually a trap. When you compare yourself to others, you're playing a game you can never win. Why? Because there will always be someone who seems better than you. Someone smarter, richer, more successful, more attractive, and even if you manage to beat someone in one area, there's another area where you'll feel like you're falling short. But here's the real kicker, the people you're comparing yourself to. They're comparing themselves to someone else too. Even the people who seem like they have it all together are struggling with their own insecurities. They're looking at someone else's life and thinking they're not enough. It's an endless cycle, and nobody wins. Let me ask you something. What would happen if you stopped comparing yourself to others? What if, instead of measuring your worth by someone else's standards, you decided to define it for yourself? This is where philosophy can help us. Nietzsche, for example, believed that comparison is a way of avoiding responsibility for our own lives. He argued that when we focus on others, we lose sight of our own potential. Instead of asking, how do I measure up to them? We should be asking, what kind of person do I want to become? But breaking free from the comparison trap isn't easy. It requires a mindset shift, a radical decision to stop looking outward and start looking inward. Instead of asking, how do I stack up? Ask yourself, what actually matters to me? What do I value? What kind of life do I want to live? Here's a practical exercise. The next time you catch yourself comparing your life to someone else's, stop and ask yourself, what am I really chasing here? Do I even want what they have, or am I just trying to prove something? You might realize that the things you envy in others aren't even aligned with your own values. And this brings us to an essential truth. You can't hate yourself into being someone else. The only way to stop hating yourself is to start accepting who you are, and that starts with letting go of the need to compare. In the next part, we're going to explore the deeper roots of self-hatred, the lies we tell ourselves, the unrealistic expectations we hold on to, and how to finally replace those toxic beliefs with something healthier and more empowering. The lies you tell yourself, how unrealistic expectations destroy you. Let's get real. Self-hatred isn't born out of nowhere. It comes from somewhere deep inside us, from the stories we tell ourselves and the expectations we cling to. Have you ever stopped to think about the lies you repeat in your own mind? The ones that whisper, you're not smart enough, you're not attractive enough, you'll never be successful. These lies are like invisible chains, and unless we confront them, they'll keep us trapped in a cycle of self-destruction. But here's the thing, most of these lies aren't even yours. They were given to you. Maybe it was a parent who expected you to be perfect. Maybe it was a teacher who said you weren't good enough. Maybe it was society telling you that your worth depends on your appearance, your achievements, or your social status. Over time, these external voices became internal ones. You started to believe them, and now they feel like the truth. Here's a question for you: who would you be without these lies? What would your life look like if you let go of the expectations you've been carrying around for years? Take a moment to think about the standards you hold yourself to. Are they realistic? Are they even human? We live in a world that glorifies perfection. Social media, movies, advertisements, they all paint this picture of what you're supposed to be: perfectly fit, wildly successful, endlessly happy. But here's the problem: perfection doesn't exist. It's a mirage, something you'll never reach because it's not real. And yet we chase it anyway. Why? Because we've been taught that if we can just be perfect, we'll finally be enough. We'll finally be loved, accepted, and happy. But the truth is, perfection isn't the key to self-worth, it's the enemy of it. When you chase perfection, you're setting yourself up for failure. You're creating a standard you can never meet, and every time you fall short, the voice in your head grows louder: see, you're a failure. You'll never be good enough. One of the most destructive lies we tell ourselves is that we have to earn our worth, that we're only valuable if we achieve certain things, look a certain way, or act a certain way. But let me ask you this: when did you decide that who you are isn't enough? When did you start believing that your value as a human being is conditional? Here's a radical idea: your worth isn't something you have to prove. It's not something you have to earn. It's something you already have simply because you exist. You are enough not because of what you do, but because of who you are. But to embrace this truth, you have to let go of the lies. You have to challenge the expectations you're holding on to and ask yourself: are these expectations serving me, or are they destroying me? Am I living my life for myself, or am I living for someone else's approval? This is where self-compassion comes in. Most of us are incredibly harsh on ourselves. We hold ourselves to impossible standards and beat ourselves up when we don't meet them. But think about it: would you talk to a friend the way you talk to yourself? Would you call someone else a failure for making a mistake, or tell them they're unworthy because they're not perfect? Of course not. So why do you do it to yourself? Here's a challenge: the next time you catch yourself thinking, "I'm not good enough," stop and reframe it. Instead of saying, "I'm a failure," say, "I'm doing my best." Instead of saying, "I'm not enough," say, "I'm human." And that's okay. Self-compassion isn't about making excuses, it's about treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you'd offer to someone you love. In the final part, we're going to explore how to replace self-hatred with self-acceptance, uncover the power of redefining your values, and learn how to create a life that's rooted in authenticity, not perfection. Becoming who you are: the path to self-acceptance and freedom. So, here we are, the final part of this journey. We've uncovered the roots of self-hatred, the comparison trap, the lies we tell ourselves, and the crushing weight of impossible expectations. But now it's time to ask the ultimate question: how do you stop hating yourself? How do you break free from this cycle of self-loathing and finally begin to accept yourself for who you are? The first step is radical honesty. You have to be willing to face yourself, not the version of you that you show the world, but the real you, the messy, imperfect, vulnerable you. This is terrifying because it means letting go of the masks you've been wearing. The mask of perfection, the mask of success, the mask of having it all together. But here's the truth: those masks are suffocating you. They're keeping you from living authentically, and they're feeding the very self-hatred you're trying to escape. Ask yourself this: who am I when I'm not trying to impress anyone? Who am I when I'm not chasing someone else's approval? Who am I when I strip away all the expectations, comparisons, and lies? You might not like the answer at first. You might see flaws, mistakes, and insecurities, but you'll also see something beautiful, the real you. The you that doesn't need to prove anything. You're messy and imperfect, but still worthy of love and acceptance. Self-acceptance isn't about pretending you're perfect. It's about embracing your imperfections as part of what makes you human. It's about understanding that you're not a project to be fixed, you're a person to be loved. And that love has to start with you. But let's get practical. How do you actually practice self-acceptance? How do you go from hating yourself to loving yourself? Start by redefining your values. Most of us hate ourselves because we're chasing the wrong things. We're chasing perfection, success, and approval, thinking they'll make us happy. But happiness doesn't come from external achievements, it comes from living in alignment with your values. So ask yourself, what truly matters to me? What kind of person do I want to be? What kind of life do I want to live? Maybe your values are kindness, creativity, or connection. Maybe they're adventure, authenticity, or growth. Whatever they are, write them down. And then ask yourself, am I living in alignment with these values? If not, what needs to change? Here's the thing, when you live according to your values, the need for comparison and perfection starts to fade. You stop measuring yourself by other people's standards because you're too focused on building a life that feels true to you. But self-acceptance isn't just about changing how you think, it's also about changing how you act. Start treating yourself the way you'd treat someone you love. Be kind to yourself when you make mistakes. Celebrate your small victories. Give yourself permission to rest when you're tired. And here's a powerful exercise every day. Write down one thing you appreciate about yourself. It can be something small, like I made someone laugh today. Or something big, like I showed courage in a difficult situation. Over time, this practice will start to rewire your brain. Instead of focusing on what's wrong with you, you'll start to see what's right with you. But let's not sugarcoat this. Self-acceptance is a lifelong journey. There will be days when you feel like you're back at square one, when the self-hatred creeps in and the old patterns resurface. On those days, remember this: you are not your thoughts. You are not your mistakes. You are not your flaws. You are something far deeper, something that can't be measured or compared. Philosopher Soren Kierkegaard once said, "The most common form of despair is not being who you are." And that's what self-hatred is, isn't it? A form of despair. A rejection of who you are in favor of who you think you should be. But here's the good news: you don't have to live in that despair. You have the power to choose something different. So, let me leave you with one final question. What would your life look like if you stopped hating yourself? If you stopped trying to fix yourself and started accepting yourself instead? If you stopped living for other people's approval and started living for yourself? The truth is, you don't have to change who you are to be worthy of love. You don't have to achieve more, look better, or be perfect. You just have to remember this: you are enough, right here, right now. And once you truly believe that, everything changes. This is your journey, your life, your chance to stop hating yourself and start becoming who you are. Will you take it?